It's your boy Matt here, currently in the National Library. I want to describe a couple of concepts today regarding what's going on in the NDIS and why so much inefficiencies and either borderline white-collar crime or overt white-collar crime is happening in it. So there's an idea called in game theory called a Nash equilibrium. And a Nash equilibrium is where everyone who's sort of playing a game or involved in any form of competitive or social engagement is in a situation where they need to keep, they're currently doing the most optimal set of behaviors to get the outcome that they want. So in the NDIS, what's going on is that a person is given a budget by the NDIS, and they'll have a NDIS planner. Then there'll be a support coordinator who sort of acts as a lawyer for the participant. This is the disabled person. And that support coordinator gets all these different reports from these different healthcare professionals who are then trying to push to represent the person down the bottom. And they're usually there to try and get the best things they can for that participant. But overall, the way that the game is played, the rules of the game, mean that it is incredibly inefficient and there's a lot of very perverse incentives. So what happens is that the NDIS are constantly in this situation where they've got pressure to decrease expenditure and look for ways to eliminate services, to reduce the amount of money on these plans so that they can reduce their budgets. Because the NDIS spends a lot of money, there's a lot of concerns that it's bankrupting Australia. So these people who are these area managers for the NDIS are constantly being told to find ways to reduce expenditure. So they're looking for ways to take money off participants. And down the bottom, if you're the healthcare provider, you are there to, first of all, take care of your client. You have to be aware that the NDIS is going to try and remove the money. And thirdly, you have a nest egg with these people. These are your hens which lay eggs. And this is very much the really dangerous thing about it. There's a phrase called in consulting work called land and expand, where what you do is that you do work for, say, a corporation as a consultant. They like your work, so they buy more of it. Now, what we try and do with NDIS participants is that we want them to have the biggest plans possible, partially because we just want the best for them, but also they're your client, and that's where you're going to get your return of work from. And if you lose these plans, if you don't have enough of these big nest eggs, you're not going to be around as a business. These are for-profit companies. They want to get as much money from these people as possible. So they'll do that. And what's happened is that the Nash equilibrium for this entire thing is that the healthcare professionals will overinflate the needs of participants. They'll have to write these reports, and most of the money budget from the NDIS will go to writing these reports so that their funding for the participant is kept, so that they can keep advocating for it. The support coordinator who is responsible sort of as the lawyer for the participant, has an incentive to get the best outcome they possibly can from the NDIS, so they'll constantly be making the hardest case they can make. And then the NDIS area coordinator is going to try and keep removing it. And because they're trying to remove the money, it means that everyone down the bottom needs to advocate as hard as possible. And that's why we're in this terrible system. This is why the NDIS, when they're trying to do their job and trying to budget for a participant, what will end up happening is that money that they budgeted for several hours of therapy won't be used for that therapy. It will be used to write a report. And because these organizations are basically paper mills, they're report mills, because that's a kind of service which is easier to standardize and easier to account for if you're a manager. Doing therapy is actually a lot of work. You have to do planning, you have to do all kinds of things. It's easier to sell reports. It's from a managerial perspective. And that's why the NDIS is the shit fight it's in. It's at the Nash equilibrium. So what we need to do is that we need to find a way to change where that Nash equilibrium is. We need to find a way for this game to be played in a way which is efficient for everyone, and that is likely going to, but at the same, to involve. I think the solution is to have the support coordinators as healthcare professionals, and as well as the area managers as healthcare professionals. I think the solution is that we just need to have more healthcare professionals. We need to all be social workers, at least social workers or OTs, and we need to all have clinical experience. You can't just go, if you're in charge of managing these people, you should know how to treat them, and you should have some healthcare knowledge. So we need a way to have that as a central part of the system. I think if we do that, then we can reduce the amount of reports that we need to write and reduce the amount of overall work and get more accurate assessments. Because this game does not produce an accurate depiction of participants. We are always having to write reports to describe the worst possible day for each participant, and horror stories, and make everything sound like a catastrophe for that person. Otherwise, the NDIS will abandon that person because they're always constantly axing it. It's not to say that these reports are inaccurate as much as they are all slightly misleading. It's the genre of this document. This document is to convey worst case scenarios, because as a health professional, you are responsible for that person's well-being, and if the correct way to think of it is like, what is the worst thing which can happen here, and how can I avoid it, and how likely is that to happen? And if that information isn't provided, that story isn't made, then that bad thing is more likely to happen. But it's incredibly inefficient the way that we're providing these services, because it's just these constant reports, all right? And that increases the bureaucracy at the other end. And so in a way, it's actually effective for the NDIS, because it provides careers and pathways for the people at the NDIS office. It's the more bureaucracy there is, the more work there is for us as well as healthcare professionals. The more inefficient it is, and the less useful work we do, the more time we get to charge for administrative work. And that's an essential part of it. Like every time we'll have a client, we'll read through all their files, and we'll charge for that. Because it's a bureaucratic heavy system, similar to how law firms function. The standard model is charging clients by 6 or 15-minute increments. And because of this, it's that there is so many opportunities for abuse. And that's the main thing with that. All right, have a good day, everyone.